Welcome everyone. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be available on social media. Please remain muted during the entire event. At this time, I ask you to turn off your video to maximize the quality of the recording. Only the readers and hosts will have video on. To maximize your viewing, click on Speaker View at the top right-hand corner. Benvenuti a tutti, si noti che questo evento verrà registrato e sarà disponibile sui social media. Si prega di disattivare il vostro microfono per tutta la durata dell'evento. In questo momento vi chiediamo anche di disattivare il vostro video per massimizzare la qualità della registrazione. Solo i partecipanti e gli host avranno il video attivo. Per massimizzare la visualizzazione cliccate su Speaker View in alto a destra. Grazie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Bonjour à tous, benvenuti. My name is Christine Sansalone, and I am the host of this event. The AICW is pleased to present Italian-Canadian Literature in Translation, which is part of the Books and Biscotti literary series. This fourth event is partly funded by the Canada Council for the Arts and the Writers' Union of Canada. Benvenuti a tutti e grazie di essere qui. L'Associazione di Scrittori e Scrittrici Italo-Canadesi è lieta di presentare questa nuova serie dedicata alla traduzione della letteratura italo-canadese. I recognize that we are all on different territories at this time, but I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that I am located on unceded Indigenous lands of the Atikamekw, Anishinaabeg, and Wahnapitae First Nations. The Association of Italian-Canadian Writers acknowledges them and other nations who care for the land across our country, and we pay our respects to Canada's first storytellers. Today we will listen to 4 AICW distinguished members: Licia Canton, Maria Pia Spadafora, Delia De Santis, and Sandor Vezer. Each couple of readers will have 15 minutes at their disposal. Feel free to type any comments on the chat. We will give you the opportunity to ask any questions at the end of the event. With no further ado, I'm going to call to the mic Licia Canton and her translator, Maria Pia Spadafora. Licia Canton's poems and stories have appeared in English, French, Chinese, Italian, and Venetian dialect. She is the author of The Pink House and Other Stories, and Almond Wine and Fertility, published in Italy as Vino alla mandorla e fertilità. She is the editor of Here and Now, an anthology of queer Italian-Canadian writing, and director of the documentary film Creative Spaces, Queer and Italian-Canadian. She was Emilio Goggio Research Fellow in Italian-Canadian Studies at the University of Toronto during the academic year 2021-2022. Honorary Fellow in Translation at the University of Hull in the UK, and Writer in Residence at the University of Calabria in 2019. The founding editor-in-chief of Accenti magazine, Licia Canton is the recipient of the Italy in the World Prize for her work in culture. She is currently president of the Association of Italian-Canadian Writers. She holds a PhD from Université de Montréal and an MA from McGill University. Maria Pia Spadafora is a freelance translator, creative writer, a teacher of Italian, English, and Spanish. She holds an MA in Modern Languages and Literatures, presenting as a final dissertation the translation of Licia Canton's The Pink House and Other Stories. In April 2020, she translated from Spanish to Italian the story of the short film nominated for Premio Goya in 2020. Laura Zamora's El Árbol de las Almas Perdidas. She lives and works in Milan.
Thanks very much, Christine. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Thanks to the AICW and the Writers' Union of Canada and the Canada Council for the Arts for making this possible. Today, Maria Pia and I will read Soft Pastels, which is one of the 15 stories in The Pink House and Other Stories. And we will read a poem in 6 versions. Soft Pastels, we will read in alternation, English and Italian. Soft Pastels. I'd like to try the colors, I said to Susan. Susan pulled out water paints, soft pastels, oil pastels, and big, thick pencil crayons. Which ones do you want to work with? She asked. Soft pastels. That was my choice. I was excited to try something new. Do you know these? Susan asked, bringing the box of soft pastels closer to me. I'd never tried them, but I had bought them for my kids in elementary school for art class. I remember they had to be purchased at an art shop and they were very expensive, but by the end of the year, they had hardly been used in art class. What a waste, I had thought. Choose a color, Susan said, as she put a 17 by 11-inch white sheet of paper in front of me. Royal blue, I said, pulling it out of the box, a color that reflected the way I felt that morning, conservative yet alive, serious yet hopeful. Close your eyes, Susan instructed. I closed my eyes and followed her instructions. I began to make shapes without lifting the pastel from the paper. It's a good way to start, Susan said encouragingly. Sort of like automatic writing, I thought. That's how I had started writing again. When Susan had suggested it nearly a year ago, I didn't think it was going to work, but I tried it because I had nothing to lose. I was in such a depressive state. I never thought I could pick myself up and wear bright colors again. I didn't think I'd ever write another story, but I did. And I was proud of that first story, my comeback story. The words had dropped onto the page one at a time, ever so slowly, after numerous attempts and after many tears. Eyes still closed, my right hand moved, sometimes slowly and other times quickly, making all kinds of royal blue shapes. After what seemed like a very long time, Susan asked me to open my eyes. Look what you've drawn, Susan smiled. I saw a random pattern, various shapes and sizes that meant nothing to me. Even the heart I was sure I had drawn was not distinguishable in the pell-mell of shapes. The heart was for the love of my life. There's certainly a lot of love in my life, and I am getting through my days because of that love. That love gives me strength and hope. I had drawn the heart, so it had to be there, hopefulness. I often wonder why I get so discouraged given all the love that embraces me at every moment of each day. What would I be without all the support I have? How would I get through the day? How do others do it? Those who do not have such support and love, how do they manage to carry on? I get so down despite all the love I have around me.
Scegli un altro colore, Susan mi disse. Adesso devi riempire gli spazi bianchi. Scelsi il fucsia per riempire il bianco tra le forme, un colore brillante e deciso, vivo e moderno. Si nota e non è affatto stancante, è un colore di tutto rispetto. Susan mi diede la possibilità di parlare o semplicemente di restare in silenzio mentre coloravo gli spazi vuoti tra le forme. Non rimasi in silenzio. Le mie labbra si muovevano alla stessa velocità con cui si sceglievo di muovere i pastelli morbidi lungo gli spazi bianchi del foglio. L'ora era volata. Inconsciamente, ogni qualvolta cambiavo colore, cambiavo anche argomento. Ora era il contrario. Mi stancavo dell'argomento o del colore. O era semplicemente la pausa che mi permetteva di proseguire? Prima di ogni incontro con Susan avevo sempre paura di non avere molte cose da dire per occupare i 60 minuti di seduta e tuttavia ogni volta sembrava che un'ora non bastasse. Cosa dovrò dire per un'ora? Il filo conduttore era la delusione. Ero delusa della mia situazione, delle mie scelte professionali, da me stessa. I miei genitori mi avevano sconsigliato di dedicarmi alle arti. Ero stanca delle persone che chiedevano il mio aiuto, i miei servizi. Ero intristita dalla mancanza di rispetto professionale che ricevevo. Per qualche ragione sembrava normale chiedere a scrittori, traduttori, editori di lavorare gratis, a titolo di favore. Avevo bisogno della traduzione pronta per ieri, spiegai a Susan, e quando gli ho inviato il preventivo mi ha detto che avrebbe fatto la traduzione da solo. E alcune persone, miei presunti amici, mi hanno mandato dei loro amici pretendendo che offrissi consigli e servizi gratis. Sono rimasti sconvolti quando hanno realizzato che li avrei fatti pagare per i miei servizi. Come pensano mi guadagni da vivere?
My kids all want a career in the arts, I said to Susan. They want to be writers and filmmakers. They don't want to work 9 to 5. They don't want a boss to tell them what to do. I sighed. Maybe your children will find a better way to do it, Susan suggested. In other words, I thought, maybe my kids will be successful where I have not been. Maybe. Thank you, Susan, I said as I was leaving after my session with the colors. I hope to have a story to read next time. I am often disappointed that I do not have a new story to share every time I see Susan. I am supposed to use these therapy sessions to get my writing momentum back. I am expected to deal with trauma by writing about it. Make that your objective then, Susan said. Write about this session. Okay, that's my homework, to write about this session. I will come back with a story next time, I promised. I wanted to keep that promise for myself mostly, but I wasn't convinced when I made the promise. Afterwards, right after the session, I sat in my car to write it all down. I looked in my purse and found the Swarovski pen my long-lost friend gifted me when I visited her in Rome after 30 years. No paper. I looked all around the car. There was a tissue box behind the passenger seat. I considered writing on tissues or ripping the box and writing on the cardboard. Then I saw the brown paper gift bag on the passenger seat. Inside, my first book, a collection of stories. It was intended as a gift for a friend. She had inspired one of the stories. I tore the gift bag, leaving the string handles, and flattened out the brown paper. I will buy another gift bag, I said to myself. I wrote quickly on both sides of the brown paper using the collection of stories as support. That paper bag with my scribbled, barely decipherable words, possibly the beginnings of a story, sat on my desk in my basement more than 2 weeks. Every time I went to my desk, there was something else to be done. It bothered me every day. I have to write that story for Susan, for me. One day, I created a new Word document and typed the title, Soft Pastels. That was it. I told every member of my family not to touch the ripped gift bag with the writing on it, just in case they had a sudden urge to tidy up my desk. One might focus on the torn bag and not see the blue writing on the brown paper. Then, on the morning of my appointment with Susan, I rushed to type the story. I sat at my desk 2 hours before the appointment and deciphered my scribbled handwriting. It would seem that I am most motivated when I have little time. Will I make it? I asked myself.
Poi mi feci un caffè e mi sedetti per scrivere le note del sacchetto marroncino, ricordando di aver creato un file board con il titolo. Non sempre mi ricordo, ecco perché ho più di un file sotto lo stesso nome per alcuni dei miei racconti. I miei documenti sono un disastro, i miei racconti sono in disordine, io sono un disastro, ma dopo tutto è per questo che ho bisogno di Susan. Vorrei che fosse mia amica. Perché non la inviti per un caffè? Suggerì mio marito dopo avergli detto per l'ennesima volta quando Susan fosse eccezionale. Non posso farlo, gli risposi. Sarebbe strano. Speravo lui mi dicesse il contrario. 2 settimane fa, dopo la seduta dei colori, sapevo che l'unico modo per mantenere la promessa era quella di scrivere in macchina subito dopo la seduta. Sapevo che era improbabile che accadesse una volta riassorbita dalla mia realtà. C'erano lavori di traduzione da terminare e scadenze da rispettare, la mail a cui rispondere, le telefonate, il bucato, la spesa, le colazioni, i pranzi, le cene, le feste di compleanno, la festa del papà, un marito e i figli, 4 genitori anziani che si impossessano di ogni mio momento libero per scrivere, ma so, anche mentre scrivo, che è opera mia, o meglio, il mio non adoperarmi. Potrei benissimo dire che non sono disponibile per nessuno di loro, come quando ho un'emicrania e non posso far altro che rimanere distesa sul letto al buio. Dipende da me, proprio così. E sono sicura che se facessi più di quello che voglio, più di quello che devo fare, allora avrei probabilmente meno mal di testa, perché le emicranie sono provocate dalla pressione che aumenta quando guardo la mia lista delle cose da fare e capisco che le mie priorità personali continuano ad essere schiacciate in fondo alla lista, sempre. Buongiorno, Susanna aprì la porta. Come stai? Benissimo. Una storia da leggerti oggi.
Six versions of the following poem. Rules not to be broken. He knows the one who gets up last makes the bed. She knows the one who cooks doesn't clean up. They know. One does the laundry, the other folds, puts clothes away. She does the laundry, she folds, opens drawers, closes drawers. I just won't do it right, he says. He gets up last, she makes the bed. He cooks, she cleans up the kitchen. She gets up last, she makes the bed. She cooks, he doesn't clean up the kitchen. Well, well, he laughs, rules are made to be broken. And I didn't agree to these rules, your rules. She goes on strike. 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. New rules. He cooks, takes out the trash, recycling, compostable bin. She does the rest. No one irons, ever.
Regole con una mi rompa. Idro sa, chi ne sa per ultimo ha di faulietto. Idra sa, chi ne cucina un pulizza. Usanno, uno fa un bucato, l'altro coglia e ustipa. Apre i tirietti, chiude i tirietti. Uno fazzo buono, dice Idro. Idro sa per ultimo, Idra faulietto. Idra cucina, Idra pulizza. Idra sa per ultima, Idra faulietto. Idra cucina, Idro pulizza. Beh, grida Idro, e regole se ne rompa. E non hai accettato ste regole, è tua. Idra sciopera, un giorno, una settimana, un mese. Regole 9. Idro cucina, ietta mugnizza, fa differenziata, u compostabile. Idra fa uristo. Nessuno stira, mai.
El sa, chi se alza ultimo fa il letto. E sa, chi cucina non etta. Tutti due, io sa. Uno lava e altro piega, mette via roba. E a lava e a piega. Versa i cassetti, serra i cassetti. Noi lo faccio ben, dice io. E se alza ultimo e a fa il letto. E o cucina e a netta. E a se alza ultima e a fa il letto. E a cucina, ma io non netta. Ma dai, ride, regole se fatte per essere rotte. E poi, non vuoi accettare queste regole che se toe. E a fa sciopero. Un dì, una settimana, un mese. Altre 9 regole. E o cucina, il portafuori a scoasse, e a differenziare il bidon del compostabile e a fa tutto il resto. Nessuno stira, ma no, mai.
Reglas que no se debe romper. Él sabe, el que se levanta segundo hace la cama. Ella sabe, el que cocina no limpia. Los dos saben, una lava la ropa, el otro la dobla y la ordena. Ella lava la ropa, ella la dobla. Abre cajones, cierra cajones. No lo haré bien, él dice. Él se levanta segundo. Ella hace la cama. Él cocina. Ella limpia. Ella se levanta segunda. Ella hace la cama. Ella cocina. Él no limpia. Bien, él se ríe. Las reglas están hechas para romperlas. Nunca he dicho que estuviera de acuerdo con estas reglas. Tus reglas. Ella se pone en huelga un día, una semana, un mes. Nuevas reglas. Él cocina, saca la basura, reciclaje, compostaje. Ella se ocupa del resto. Nadie plancha. Nunca.
Il le sait, celui qui se lève en dernier doit faire le lit. Elle le sait, celle qui cuisine ne range pas. Les deux le savent. L'un fait la lessive, l'autre plie, range les vêtements. Elle fait la lessive, elle plie, ouvre les tiroirs, ferme les tiroirs. Je ne le fais pas bien, dit-il. Il se lève en dernier, elle fait le lit. Il cuisine, elle range. Elle se lève après lui, elle fait le lit. Elle cuisine, il ne range pas. Eh bien, dit-il, les règles sont faites pour être enfreintes. Et je ne suis pas d'accord avec ces règles, tes règles. Elle fait la grève. Un jour, une semaine, un mois. De nouvelles règles. Il cuisine, sort les vidanges, le recyclage, le bac compostable. Elle fait le reste. Personne ne repasse. Ah non, ça jamais.
Lui sa, chi si alza per ultimo rifà il letto. Lei sa, chi cucina non pulisce. Lo sanno, uno fa il bucato, l'altro piega e lo conserva. Lei fa il bucato e lo piega. Apre i cassetti, chiude i cassetti. Non lo faccio bene, dice lui. Si alza per ultimo. Lei rifà il letto, lui cucina, lei pulisce. Lei si alza per ultima e rifà il letto. Lei cucina, lui non pulisce. Beh, ride lui, le regole sono fatte per essere infrante e non ho accettato queste regole, che sono le tue. Lei fa sciopero un giorno, una settimana, un mese. Ecco 9 regole. Lui cucina, porta fuori la spazzatura, differenziata, bidone compostabile. Lei fa tutto il resto. Nessuno stira, mai. Grazie.
Thank you very much. Grazie. We'll move on to our second speaker, Sandor Vezer, who will be reading his translation of Eduardo Maturo's works. Sandor Vezer is a trilingual Canadian of Italian and Hungarian origin with a BA in Geographic Analysis from Ryerson University and a master's degree in Creative and Humanistic Translation from the University of Valencia, Spain. In 2020, after having read his favorite book, Papa Van Basten e altri supereroi, for the second time, he contacted its Italian author, started a publishing company, Giovanotto, and successfully negotiated its English translation rights with publishing powerhouse Mondadori. In 2021, Giovanotto translated and published Papa Van Basten and Other Superheroes, and in December 2021, Giovanotto completed the series. Giovanotto just secured the English translation rights for its 4th and 5th books.
Buonasera, buonasera. I don't know if I should speak English or Italian. I'll speak English for now. Yes, thank you, Christine. This was the first edition of the book, which was then acquired. The rights for the book were acquired by Mondadori, who published its second edition. And they also commissioned a series. So it's a book about a father that wants to ensure his children become fans of AC Milan, the soccer team. Are there any tifosi over here? Any soccer fans? Are you, if you're not a Milanista, I don't know, non mi fido, eh? In any case, they wrote one about Italy's 2 other most successful teams, Juventus, so Papà Del Piero e altri supereroi, and Papà Zanetti e altri supereroi. And like Christine said, we completed the series. So Van Basten, Del Piero, and Zanetti, Inter Milan and Juventus. And as she said, we just acquired the English translation rights for our 4th and 5th books. Super Papà contro Supereroi. It's a continuation of Papà Van Basten e altri supereroi. It's a hilarious book. And then this one here, Saragama, la mia vita dietro un pallone. She is the captain of the Juve women's team, of the Juventus women's team, and the Italian national soccer team for the female soccer team. So we're very excited about that. This book, it's not just about calcio, it's about so much more. It teaches a lot of great values. It's very nostalgic. It's very funny because his son doesn't understand everything. And it's a lot about parenthood, about family and things like that, and passing down your passions to your family. So we have a lot of books here. Maybe for our target reader, there aren't a lot of readers, but we are going off of the, we think that if we build it, people will come. So we're creating this soccer publishing company here, and we hope it'll take off and that there will be more readers out there, because unfortunately there are not a lot of readers. People like to watch TV. In any case, Papà Van Basten and other superheroes. Just a quick question. Should I be reading the Italian edition as well, or just the English one? Christine, Maria.
So if you could read a piece from the original and then the translation of it.
Sure. Should I maybe read the first chapter in the first chapter, or maybe I can read the preface from the original and then the first chapter from the translated version?
Sure.
Sure, perfect. So, prefazione. Mentre 5 anni fa mi accingevo a scrivere Papà Van Basten e altri supereroi, mai avrei pensato che stavo per riscrivere anche la mia vita. Innanzitutto perché è grazie a questo libro se ho realizzato uno dei sogni più grandi, entrare a San Siro, entrare a San Siro, mano nella mano con mio figlio, 27 anni dopo esserci entrato per la prima volta con mio padre. E poi perché grazie a questo libro ho conosciuto un sacco di gente meravigliosa, compresi alcuni dei miei vecchi supereroi. Ma andiamo con ordine. Tutto comincia quando divento papà e per fare addormentare Leonardo, non conoscendo altro, mi improvviso intonandogli i cori da stadio e narrandogli le epiche gesta dei campioni che popolavano le pareti della mia cameretta da ragazzo. Van Basten, Baresi, Maldini, Shevchenko, Kakà, i miei supereroi, insomma. È colpa di mia moglie Claudia, e chi se no, se ho iniziato a mettere per iscritto quelle che a tutti gli effetti erano diventate delle vere e proprie favole della buonanotte. Ed è sempre per colpa sua che mi sono convinto a pubblicare il libro. E siccome allora nessuna casa editrice era disposta a darmi fiducia, ho deciso di chiedere fiducia alla gente, con una campagna di crowdfunding che non solo ha raggiunto l'obiettivo di raccolta iniziale, ma l'ha quasi triplicato. Da lì in poi, a essere sinceri, faccio fatica a ricordare tutte le cose belle che mi sono successe, tutto l'affetto che mi ha travolto grazie a questo libro. La mia casella di posta ha cominciato a riempirsi ogni giorno di messaggi da ogni parte del mondo: Italia, Inghilterra, Australia, Stati Uniti. Un giorno un tizio mi ha scritto perfino dalla Mongolia, e tutti che mi dicevano la stessa cosa, che si erano riconosciuti nel mio libro come padri, come figli, come tifosi, come persone, e come persone, che il mio non era solo un libro sul calcio, ma la storia di ognuno di noi, la storia di chi ama il calcio. È come se una bomba mi fosse esplosa tra le mani. E infatti, Papà Van Basten e altri supereroi nel tempo è diventato anche il nome di una comunità che sui diversi social ormai conta più di 100.000 persone. A 3 anni dalla sua prima pubblicazione, quindi si può dire che Papà Van Basten e altri supereroi non è più solo un libro e non è più nemmeno solo il mio libro, perché appartiene a tutti quelli che l'hanno letto, a quelli che ci hanno creduto fin dall'inizio, a tutti i bambini che sognano di diventare supereroi e a tutti i papà che sperano di trasmettere la propria fede al figlio, a tutti quelli che amano il Milan, ma anche a tutti quelli che hanno altri gusti. Per questo oggi sono felice che anche i tifosi di Inter e Juve possano leggere le favole dei propri supereroi grazie a papà Zanetti e altri supereroi e papà Del Piero e altri supereroi. Perché io 5 anni fa ho raccontato la mia storia, ma potrebbe essere la storia di chiunque di noi. Papà Van Basten and Other Superheroes. Capitolo 1, Chapter 1. La pecora rossonera, the red and black sheep. I became a Milanista the day I found my nonno's wallet on the ground, opened it and saw 2 faded pictures of Johnny Rivera and Padre Pio. Since I was young and didn't know who they were, I asked my nonno, and he explained. One performs miracles and the other is a popular Apulian friar, Diego Batantuano. I remember the first time I went to the stadium with my father as if it were yesterday. I was 6 years old, an age where tying a red towel around your neck is enough to make you feel like Superman. Like all children, I adored superheroes. Only mine wore shorts and red and black jerseys instead of masks and spandex suits. Then there was my father, who at the time was still my favorite superhero of all. Because even if he didn't fly, even if he had a lanky physique instead of abs of steel, and even if he had biscotti and a cafe macchiato for breakfast instead of spinach, when he held me in his arms, he had the superpower to make me feel like it was the safest place in the world. Like all superheroes, my father had a weakness, traffic. It turned him into a monster. And since he hated being stuck in traffic so much, that day we parked light years away from San Siro, almost at the city bypass. From there, a good 5-kilometer walk awaited us under the September sun. But to me, it didn't matter one bit because I was hand in hand with my dad and I was going to see my Milan at their stadium for the first time. What more could I ask for? After a lonely first few kilometers, we finally came across the unorganized and rowdy group of tifosi heading directly toward the stadium, with whom we tagged along until Piazza Axum. Once we were finally in the presence of San Siro, huffing and puffing like 2 center midfielders, I froze. The Piazza had never looked so beautiful, at least not in my eyes. I had seen it before, usually on the way to my grandmother's house, but it had always been empty. Now it was swarming with stalls, scalpers, fans, flags, and life. It was a real sight to see. We diligently got in line outside the gates, and while we were people watching, a roar came from inside the stadium, tearing through the sky like a summer storm. It was the Curva Sud reacting to the players who had come onto the pitch to warm up. From outside, I had no way of knowing this, so I got scared and almost started to cry. It's okay, my father said, who, as it turns out, actually had some superpowers under that pancha. The stadium must have found out that we finally arrived. The steward played along too. Pointing to the tickets, he said, "Look, it even says here that without you, the game can't start." Satisfied with the explanations, I thought to myself, do you see the advantages of having a super dad? After all, I was at a point in my life in which I still couldn't read or write, and I still believed everything, and I mean everything that my father said. Although that's no longer the case, that day I had no reason not to believe him. So I tugged on his arm and said, "Come on, Papa, let's hurry or the game won't start and they'll tear us apart." We got to the top of the second ring, even sweatier and more tired than we already were. I'm not sure if you know how tall San Siro is, but we were in the last row of the second ring, the one next to the pigeons. The view was fantastic, and thanks to the clear sky, you could see Monte Rosa and the Alps and the Madonnina on top of the Duomo. The only problem is that from up there, you need X-ray vision to see the players. "This is the best place to watch the game," my father rushed to explain after having read my body language. "Sure, from the front row, you can see the players better. You can almost touch them, but the best place to understand their positioning is from up here." "So why didn't we sit in the first ring?" I was going to ask, but I didn't say anything. And in hindsight, I think it was for the better because it's more heroic to pretend to have X-ray vision than to admit that you couldn't afford better tickets. In any case, I was just happy to be in the same place, breathe the same air, and see the same things as my superheroes. Once we were settled in our seats, I noticed that the stands were already full of people who had evidently parked closer than us, since they had been there for some time, singing, applauding, and waiting for their idols to take to the pitch. This proved to me that I couldn't have been the only one in the world who lived for Milan, collected Panini football cards, kicked anything within reach, and whenever possible, would go to his room to put on his Bob Marley style Hulit hat. Shortly thereafter, a silence echoed through the stadium as an announcement, sponsored by Meteor Fire Extinguishers, came through the speakers, introducing the starting lineup. Galli, Tassotti, Maldini, Costa Curta, Baresi, Rijkaard, Evani, Fuser, Donadoni, Massaro, and Van Basten. After every name, the crowd responded with a wave or applause. But that was nothing compared to the delirium that was unleashed when the Milan players finally descended onto the green grass. Red smoke engulfed the atmosphere, flags were held high, and drums began to play to the tune of the battle that awaited us. It seemed like we were literally in hell. Maybe this is why our symbol is the devil, I thought. I'd never seen anything quite like it in my life. I don't even think my mother's eggplant parmigiana made me as excited. On second thought, let's not exaggerate. The fact is, I was so exhilarated that I screamed and shouted like a Super Bowl cheerleader, and it seemed as if the other 80,000 people there were bouncing off the walls too. Actually, the other 79,999 people, because in the midst of the madness, my father was the one person frowning and crossing his arms as if he were in line at the post office. I now need to share one little but important detail about him. Like all his brothers and nephews, he's a diehard Interista. As a matter of fact, of all the Maturos in the world, I was the only Milanista. Over the years, I've come to learn that his frown and crossed arms weren't the signs of someone bored in line at the post office, but of someone silently protesting against a dark destiny. Of all the black sheep God has sent to earth, why did he have to end up with the red and black one? La pecora rossonera.
Grazie. I have a few announcements before we move on to our third and last writer. The first announcement is that the deadline for the Veneta Fazio Poetry Contest has been extended to August 31st. So please send in your poems. Then to mark the 40th anniversary in 2026, the AICW will publish an anthology of poetry and prose. AICW members, as well as established and emerging Canadian writers of Italian origin, are invited to submit their work. And the last announcement is we are pleased to announce that the next in-person AICW conference, The Traces We Leave Italian Canadians in Their Works, will be held at the University of Torino from September 28th to October 1st, 2022. The program will be publicized shortly. And now let's go back to our readers. I'm going to call to the mic Delia De Santis and her translator, Maria Pia Spadafora. Delia loves writing flash fiction, short stories, and memoir pieces. Her work has been published in literary magazines and anthologies, and some has been translated into Italian. She's a longtime executive member of the AICW and belongs to the Writers' Union of Canada. She lives in Brights Grove, Ontario, along the shores of beautiful Lake Huron.
Since this technical problem, I will read in English an excerpt from her story, her short story, Eruption.
Thank you.
Eruptions by Delia De Santis. It's after midnight and I'm still sitting on my chair, an open poetry book in my hand. But I can't read nor let book go. It is because I need something to hold on to just now, something I'm afraid to lose. I close my eyes and let myself go back to when our love was painful sweet, a love that penetrated the depth of our eyes and will never fall by the wayside. But when was that? So long ago. And did it ever exist, the vision that things will last forever? The words liquid honey, the sweetness drawn from our kisses. He and I began our lives together to the rhythm of commandments that would please each other. Where has it all gone? We have become like fallen autumn leaves that winter attaches to frozen ground. The passing of the season had taken us deeper and deeper into the earth, almost making us into fossils. Yet there must still be some residue of softness to be found between us. Can I let myself hope? The distance between the edges of our bed is unreachable. The question we ask each other, are you sleeping? At the usual unexpected reply, why? As though the question could have other meanings. Conversation during the day often turn to shrugs. What do you want me to say? He says, while I'm still searching his face for some relenting of feelings, some yielding. But his looks tell me I'm talking uselessly or asking a senseless question. During meals, I often end up reproaching myself for attempting small talk. Ignored, I walk away and go put her somewhere at a considerable distance from the supper table, an arrow of pain shooting towards the lamp, gathering in my thoughts, stirring, settling. But there are times when I will burst out, anger and resentment lashing out in accusation over small injustices, or the more relevant ones, such as having had to live my life according to his needs, his dream. Ok. Eruzioni di Delia De Santis. È mezzanotte passata, sono ancora seduta sulla sedia con un libro di poesie aperto in mano, ma non riesco a leggerlo né a lasciarlo. Forse perché ho bisogno di qualcosa a cui aggrapparmi proprio ora, forse perché per qualcosa che ho paura di perdere. Chiudo gli occhi e mi lascio portare a quando il nostro amore era dolorosamente dolce, un amore che penetrava nella profondità dei nostri occhi e che non sarebbe mai cessato. Ma quanto è accaduto? Così tanto tempo fa. E poi è mai esistita la visione che le cose sarebbero durate per sempre. Le parole di Ambrosia, la dolcezza tinta dai nostri baci. Lui ed io iniziamo la nostra vita insieme al ritmo dei comandamenti che più ci sarebbero piaciuti. Dove è finito tutto? Siamo diventati come le foglie che cadono in autunno, che l'inverno attacca al terreno ghiacciato. Il passare delle stagioni ci ha portato sempre più in profondità nella terra, rendendoci quasi dei fossili. Eppure ci deve essere ancora qualche residuo di morbidezza da trovare in noi. Mi è permesso di sperare. La distanza tra i bordi del nostro letto è irraggiungibile. La domanda che ci facciamo a vicenda, stai dormendo? E la risposta solitamente scontata perché? Come se la domanda potesse avere altri significati. Le conversazioni durante il giorno si trasformano spesso in alzate di spalle. Cosa vuoi che ti dica? Dice mentre cerca ancora sul viso un qualche cedimento di sentimenti, una resa. Ma il suo sguardo mi dice che sto parlando inutilmente o che sto facendo una domanda senza senso. Durante i pasti finisco spesso per rimproverarmi, per aver tentato conversazioni di poco conto, completamente ignorata. Mi allontano e vado a bighellonare da qualche parte, a una distanza considerevole dal tavolo da pranzo. Una freccia di dolore che scocca verso il nodo che si raccoglie nella mia gola, che brucia e si deposita. Ma ci sono momenti in cui scoppio, la rabbia e il risentimento si scatenano in accuse per piccole ingiustizie o per quelle più rilevanti, come l'aver dovuto vivere la mia vita secondo i suoi bisogni, i suoi sogni. Non è più interessata a ciò che io voglio della vita. Considera i miei sogni esigui, non sono affatto sogni. Sono troppo semplici, nemmeno una piccola parte dei suoi sogni. Sei pigra, mi gridò una volta. Le parole taglienti fanno male. Non ho la sua energia. Forse il suo chiamarmi pigra ha a che fare con le sue mancanze, per non essere in grado di capirmi, come se fosse qualcosa da temere, oppure la sua delusione per non aver avuto nella vita un successo più grande del suo, perché le sue aspettative erano troppo grandi. Sono in difetto per non soccombere ai suoi sogni in termini monetari, in un momento in cui tutto ciò che desidero sono le passeggiate domenicali nel parco, stare in compagnia dei figli e dei nipoti, i genitori, la chiesa, tutte queste cose semplici. Comincio ad avere sonno, dovrei andare a letto, ma aspetto che il russare occasionale della camera da letto vicino finisca e sia sostituito da un respiro tranquillo, segno di un sonno profondo. Quando posso scivolare nel letto senza essere sentita, la vita è più facile in questo modo. All'inizio della settimana mi trovavo fuori dalla porta d'ingresso con la borsa in mano, pronta a scappare, trovare rifugio da un amico o forse andare in un albergo per la notte. Al mattino la rabbia sarebbe sparita. Avevo strappato la tovaglia da tavola, lasciando che i piatti con i loro avanti si schiantassero sul pavimento per qualcosa che avevo detto. Ma perché cedere? Nessuno farà il prepotente con me, raccoglierà da solo i suoi rottami. Questo lo so, lo farà, conosco il suo carattere. Così, in silenzio, rientro in casa e riprendo la borsa nell'armadio, evitando la cucina. In bagno riempio la vasca con l'acqua più calda possibile. Ho bisogno che il bagno duri a lungo. Mentre mi immergo, penso a tante cose, a come eravamo una volta e a cosa siamo diventati. Poi, improvvisamente, ricordo alcune delle parole che avevo sentito alla televisione qualche giorno prima. Il Vesuvio, il suo serbatoio nelle sue viscere, lo scarico al collo di bottiglia che ora mostra un'ostruzione, le previsioni scientifiche. Penso alla migliaia di persone che vivono nelle vicinanze del vulcano, che ogni giorno continuano la loro vita di sempre. Perché scelgono di rimanere lì sapendo che delle distruzioni precedenti? Perché non si sono trasferiti in altre città, in luoghi più sicuri? Rimangono, vivendo la loro vita come se fossero ignari dell'ira del vulcano. L'acqua è fredda ed esco dalla vasca, lasciando che l'acqua goccioli sul pavimento. Penso ai pensieri ricorrenti delle nostre vite che si soffermano sugli estremi delle nostre situazioni. Dovremmo smettere di pensarci, lasciare che vengano dimenticati. Avvolgendomi nel calore del mio stesso accappatoio, sospiro. Oh, ma potrei richiamare l'amore che avevo una volta, o anche compiere piccoli atti di gentilezza, il conoscersi con un leggero tocco della mano. Grazie.
Okay, thank you, Maria Pia. Thank you, Delia, Licia, and Sandor. We now have time for a few minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions for our authors and our translators. So thank you everyone, readers and friends and family, for joining us today. Thanks to my co-host Maria Pia Spadafora and technical host Licia Canton. This event is partly funded by the Canada Council for the Arts and by the Writers Union of Canada. It was brought to you by the Association of Italian Canadian Writers, which is run by a group of volunteers. We welcome donations at any time. Go to aicw.ca to donate and to find out more about our activities. And I hope to see you again in September. We're going to have another session or another event for the Literature in Translation series. That will be our 5th event. So I know there are some writers that are logged in today that submitted proposals. So I will be reaching out to you in the near future to establish a date and a time for our September event. Ok, so buona serata a tutti e buona estate. Ci vediamo di nuovo a settembre. Ciao ciao.